The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched across 3 kilometers of crystal and light. Floating platforms held representatives from over 8,000 species, their forms ranging from clouds of living gas to beings made entirely of metal. Ancient civilizations that had existed for millions of years watched from the highest tiers. Young species, barely spacefaring for a few thousand years, occupied the lower sections. At the center of this impossible room stood a single-us. Human. Ambassador James Whitford was 54 years old. He wore a simple gray suit with no medals, no symbols of rank, no genetic modifications visible on his weathered face. He stood on a transparent disk that made him appear to float above an endless void. Above him, the charges against humanity glowed in letters 300 meters tall. Unauthorized expansion into protected territories. Illegal trade route establishment. Refusal to submit genetic samples. Failure to adopt standard communication protocols. Violation of 17 separate council mandates. The High Speaker of the Council rose from his throne of solidified starlight. He was called Valkor, and he had governed galactic affairs for 900 years. His body was a mass of shifting geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly. Species 7042. Designated human, Valkor announced, his voice filling every corner of the chamber through technologies older than Earth itself. The Council has reviewed your case for 60 rotations. We find you guilty on all charges. 8,000 species waited for the human's response. Most expected begging. Some expected rage. A few had placed bets on whether he would attempt to flee. Ambassador Whitford simply nodded. The sentence is as follows, Valkor continued. Humanity will surrender 40% of its colonial territories. Earth will accept a permanent monitoring station in orbit. Your faster-than-light technology will be regulated under Council supervision. You will comply within 30 standard cycles, or you will be declared non-aligned, stripped of all protections and trade rights under galactic law. The chamber fell silent. This was the moment where species broke, where they realized the full weight of galactic authority and submitted to their place in the natural order. Ambassador Whitford reached into his jacket pocket. Security systems across the chamber activated. Weapons locked onto the human. Shields materialized around the most important council members. Whitford removed a small data chip and placed it gently on the transparent disk beneath his feet. High Speaker, he said, his voice calm and clear. The United Earth Confederacy thanks the Council for its clarity. This chip contains our formal response, but I will summarize it now for the record. He paused, looking up at the assembled might of galactic civilization. Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. Effective immediately. We renounce all treaties, all trade agreements, and all diplomatic arrangements established over the past 112 years. Murmurs rippled through the galleries. This had happened before with minor species. They always came crawling back within a few years. We will vacate the contested territories as demanded, Whitford continued. Not because we accept your authority, but because we no longer wish to participate in your systems. Within 30 cycles, no human will remain in council space. Valkor's geometric form pulsed with what might have been amusement. You misunderstand your position, human. Withdrawal means exile. No trade, no protection, no access to the communication networks. Your ships will be denied passage. Your colonies will starve. Your civilization will collapse within 3 generations. Perhaps, Whitford replied. We shall see. He turned and began walking toward the exit portal. The chamber erupted in noise. Laughter from some species. Outrage from others. A few voices called out warnings that were ignored. Whitford paused at the portal. Without turning around, he spoke one final time. In approximately 6 standard months, you will begin to understand what has happened here today. When that understanding comes, I hope you will remember this moment clearly. You will want to know exactly where everything went wrong. He stepped through the portal and vanished. The withdrawal began within hours. Human embassies across 47 worlds closed their doors. Diplomatic staff boarded transport vessels. Trade representatives terminated contracts with polite efficiency. No anger, no protests. No desperate last-minute negotiations, just silence. On the relay station, orbiting the commerce world of Tessith Prime, a human engineer named Diana completed her final shift. The relay network was the backbone of galactic civilization, allowing instant communication across thousands of light years. Human technicians had helped maintain certain sections for decades. Her Valaxian replacement watched her pack her belongings with visible confusion. "You are truly leaving?" The Valaxian asked. "Over a political dispute?" "Orders from home," Diana replied. "I am sorry for the sudden departure. There are some maintenance notes in the system. Junction 17 has a minor fluctuation in the quantum buffer. I have been compensating for it manually. We built this network before your species discovered fire," the Valaxian said dismissively. "I think we can handle a minor fluctuation." Diana nodded and said nothing more. She did not mention that human engineers had been making similar compensations across 34% of the network for the past 60 years. Small improvements, subtle optimizations, adjustments that had increased efficiency by 400% without anyone noticing. She simply left, on Earth. President Amara Oilerin addressed an emergency session of the United Confederacy Parliament. "The withdrawal is proceeding on schedule," she announced. "All citizens are returning home. All trade agreements are being terminated. Within 30 days, we will have no presence in council space." A representative stood. "Madam President, what about our outer colonies? They depend on council trade routes for medical supplies and rare materials. Every outer colony has been preparing for this possibility for the past 20 years, Oilerin replied. Secret stockpiles, alternative supply chains, self-sustaining infrastructure. We did not enter this moment unprepared. Another representative spoke. But the Council controls the communication network. Without access, we will be isolated. Messages between colonies will take months instead of seconds. President Oilerin smiled. The Council believes they control the only faster-than-light communication system in existence, she said. They are mistaken. She activated a holographic display showing human space. A web of golden lines connected every colony, every station, every vessel. Project Whisper. 23 years of development. A completely independent communication network using principles the Council has never discovered. They will not even know we are talking to each other. The chamber erupted in applause. Far away. In a hidden research station, buried in the debris field of a shattered moon, lead scientist Victor Hahn reviewed the final preparations for Phase 2. The Council believes we are primitive, he said to his assistant. They have never asked themselves a very simple question. What question? How did a species that has only been traveling between stars for 2 centuries expand faster than civilizations millions of years old? How did we develop technologies that should not exist for another 10,000 years of normal development? He smiled. They never asked because they did not want to know the answer. Now they are going to find out. 6 months later, Councillor Thiessen of the Vorn Collective floated before High Speaker Valker. The humans have been gone for half a cycle. They must have returned to beg for readmission by now. Valkor's form flickered with something that might have been discomfort. No, they have not returned. And why have you summoned me? The High Speaker projected a simple graph into the space between them. It showed galactic trade volume over the past 6 months. The line was falling. Not dramatically, not catastrophically, just steadily, consistently falling across every sector. It is the humans, Valkyr said. Or rather, it is their absence. We are beginning to discover dependencies. Dependencies? What dependencies? Valkor's geometric form shuddered. All of them. The Vorn collective had existed for 800,000 years. Their civilization was built on telepathic commerce, trillions of crystalline minds forming a living network of trade and information exchange. They had never experienced what organic species called silence. Now, for the first time in their recorded history, there were gaps. Counselor Thizin hovered before the Grand Nexus, the central node of Vorn consciousness, trying to understand what she was sensing. The network was not damaged. The connections remained intact. But something had changed in the data flowing through them. What is happening? She projected into the collective dot. A million voices answer as one. We are missing 23% of routine commercial transmissions. Financial instruments are failing to process. Contracts are defaulting across 17 sectors. That is impossible. We have operated these systems for millennia. The humans handled our translation protocols. Theson's crystalline form contracted with confusion. Translation? We have been communicating across the galaxy since before humans existed. We do not need their translators. Not verbal translation. Conceptual translation. Humans served as intermediaries in negotiations between species that could not understand each other's fundamental values. They found common ground where none existed. Without them, agreements are collapsing. The implications began to unfold in Theson's consciousness. How many active trade agreements relied on human intermediaries? Approximately 34% of all commerce in Council space. On the agricultural world of Kethros 7, the Tellurian overseer named Gorvax stood in a field of dying crops. The sight made no sense to him. The soil composition was correct. The atmospheric processors were functioning perfectly. But the yield was down 40% and falling. His junior technician ran diagnostic after diagnostic. Overseer, I have found the problem. The nutrient delivery system is miscalibrated. The timing sequences are wrong by small amounts across every distribution node. Then fix it. I cannot. The original calibration was performed by human agricultural consultants. They used a mathematical approach we do not recognize. Our systems cannot replicate it. Gorvax stared at his dying fields. These crops had fed 3 systems for 600 years. Contact the humans. Hire them back. I have tried. Their communication channels are silent. Our requests receive no response. Then find their methods in the archives. The technician hesitated. There are no methods in the archives. When asked to document their processes, the human consultant said their approach was intuitive and adaptive. They made adjustments based on factors they could not fully explain. They simply understood what the crops needed. Gorvax looked at his fields and felt something he had never experienced in his 200 years of life. Fear. 2. Months after the withdrawal, High Speaker Valkyr called an emergency session of the council leadership. The galleries were less crowded than usual. Many species were dealing with crisis at home and could not spare representatives. The situation is worse than initially assessed, Valkyr announced. I will present the findings. He projected data into the chamber. Trade volume is down 18% and continuing to fall. The Vorn Collective reports translation failures affecting 1/3 of their commercial relationships. The Tellurian Agricultural Consortium reports crop failures on 17 worlds, all previously serviced by human agronomists. The Rillian Banking Federation reports a financial crisis caused by the collapse of complex instruments that humans designed and maintained. A massive reptilian being encased in ceremonial. Armor rose from his seat. Counselor Drath of the Drath Imperium spoke with barely contained anger. This is impossible. Humans were a minor species. They contributed nothing of significance to galactic civilization. That was our assumption, Valka replied. The assumption appears to have been incorrect. He continued presenting the reports. The relay network is experiencing bandwidth degradation. Human engineers had been implementing undocumented improvements for decades. Without their maintenance, we are reverting to baseline capacity. Communication delays are increasing across all sectors. Medical research collaborations have stalled. Humans contributed to 42% of xenobiology studies through their unique experimental approaches. Disease treatment protocols are now advancing at 1/4 of their previous speed. Cultural industries across the galaxy are reporting audience decline. Human artists and storytellers were apparently far more influential than we realized. Entertainment production has become stagnant. The chamber filled with distressed murmurs. Counselor Thiessen projected her thoughts. This must be sabotage. The humans must have damaged our systems before they left. There is no evidence of sabotage, Valka responded. They simply departed. Everything failing was dependent on their continued presence. We never noticed because they never demanded recognition. They simply solved problems and made improvements, and we assumed this progress was natural. Counselor Draft slammed an armored fist against his platform. Then force them to return. Send our fleets to their borders and demand their cooperation. How? Their homeworld is surrounded by defensive systems we cannot penetrate. Their colonies have gone dark to our sensors. Every attempt to contact them has been met with silence. Then we wait. They will starve without galactic trade. They will suffer and return begging for readmission. Valkor's geometric form shifted uncomfortably. Counselor Draff, human colonies are not starving. Our long-range observations detect no signs of distress. Their population centers remain active. Their ship traffic continues. They appear to be thriving. Impossible. Without access to our trade networks, without our resources, they do not need our resources. They never did. That is what we are beginning to understand. They participated in our systems by choice, not necessity. They contributed to our civilization because they wanted to, not because they had to. The chamber fell into stunned silence. And now, Valko concluded, they have chosen to stop. On Earth, President Eulerin met with her strategic council in a secure chamber beneath the capital. Status report. Admiral Takeshi Brennan activated a holographic display. The council is feeling our absence. Trade disruptions, communication failures, agricultural problems. Everything is proceeding exactly as our models predicted. Casualties? None directly caused by our departure. We were careful to withdraw in ways that would cause difficulty, not catastrophe. No one will die because we left. They will simply struggle. Intelligence Director Maya Volkov spoke next. Our monitoring systems are detecting increased diplomatic traffic between council members. They are searching for solutions. So far, they have found none. Have they attempted contact? 14 formal requests through various channels. We have responded to none. President Eulerin nodded. Continue the silence. Let them feel the absence. A young aide raised his hand nervously. Madam President, I understand the strategic value of this approach. But will they actually learn the lesson we intend? Or will they simply grow to hate us? Eulerin turned to face him. Her expression was not unkind. Tell me, Lieutenant, why do you think we did this? To prove our value. To show the Council that they need us. No. Eulerin shook her head. That is what they will think. That is what they will tell themselves. But the truth is simpler. She walked to a window that looked out on a garden filled with plants from a dozen human colony worlds. We left because staying was destroying us. Not physically, spiritually. The Council looked at humanity and saw a useful tool. A minor species clever enough to solve problems, simple enough to control. They never saw us as equals. They never would have. And as long as we stayed, we would have continued bending ourselves to fit their expectations. She turned back to the council. We did not withdraw to teach them a lesson. We withdrew to save ourselves. If they learn something from our absence, that is their concern. Our only obligation is to our own people. The aide considered this. And if they decide to destroy us for leaving? Oilerin smiled. Then they will discover something else about humanity. Something we have never shown them. What? What we are capable of when we stop holding back. 3 months later, reports reached the council that a border conflict had erupted between the Tellurians and the Hyans. Drath, a dispute that human diplomats had managed for decades, had suddenly exploded into violence. A financial crisis was spreading through the Rillian banking networks. Markets that humans had quietly stabilized were now swinging wildly. And worst of all, a plague had appeared on the frontier worlds. A disease that human scientists had been studying. A disease they had been developing treatments for. The treatments existed. Somewhere in human space, the cure was waiting, but humanity remained silent. The plague was called the crystalline rot. It was a silicon-based pathogen that targeted carbon-silicon hybrid species, slowly converting their organic tissues into brittle, non-functional crystal. It first appeared on the frontier world of Vos Prime, in a mining colony populated by Gorshan workers. Within 3 weeks, it had spread to 7 systems. Dr. Lixeth, the Gorshan medical officer assigned to contain the outbreak, stood in a hospital ward filled with dying patients. Their bodies glittered in the harsh medical lighting. They were becoming beautiful in a terrible way, like sculptures made of suffering. There must be something we can do, Lixeth said to her colleague, a Tellurian epidemiologist named Vorax. Some treatment, some therapy we have not tried. There was a treatment, Vorax replied. Human researchers at a remote station were studying this exact pathogen 3 years ago. They identified its structure and developed a prototype cure. Their preliminary reports are in the Galactic Medical Archives. Then use them. I cannot. The reports are incomplete. The humans documented their findings, but not their methodology. They stated that final treatment protocols would be shared upon completion of the project. The project was never completed. When humans withdrew, their researchers left with everyone else. Lixeth looked at her patients. A young Gorshan female had begun the final transformation. Crystal was creeping up her arm toward her heart. She had perhaps 2 days left. Contact Earth. Beg them. Offer them whatever they want. Every government in the affected region has tried. The humans do not respond to any communication. They cannot simply let people die. Vorax hesitated. They are not letting anyone die. They are simply not helping. There is a difference in moral weight. We expelled them. We told them their contributions were unwelcome. We cannot now demand they save us from a crisis they warned us about years ago. Lixeth's claws clicked against the floor in frustration. Then we find another solution. Someone else must have the knowledge to fight this disease. I have searched every medical database in Council space. Human xenobiology was unique. They approached disease from first principles, questioning assumptions that other species accepted without thought. No one else has replicated their methods. The young patient cried out in pain. The crystal had reached her shoulder. Lixeth made a decision. I am going to Earth. They will not see you. Then I will wait at their borders until they do. Lixeth was not the only one with this idea. Within days, a fleet of vessels from 23 species gathered at the edge of human space. Diplomats, scientists, merchants, and desperate families all seeking an audience with the civilization that had gone silent. They waited at the boundary marker. A simple beacon broadcasting a single message in every known language. Human space begins here. Entry requires authorization. No authorization is currently being granted. Please stand by. Days passed. Then weeks. The ships waited. They sent messages. They pleaded. They threatened. They offered bribes. They bargained. The beacon continued its broadcast. Unchanging. On the 19th day, a human vessel emerged from the boundary. It was a small diplomatic courier, unarmed and unassuming. A holographic image appeared across the gathered fleet. A middle-aged human woman with graying hair and tired eyes. I am Undersecretary Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Confederacy. I have been authorized to receive one representative from your group. One only. Choose among yourselves. You have 1 hour. The fleet erupted in argument. Old rivalries surfaced. Accusations flew back and forth. Each species believed their need was greatest, their cause most urgent. After 53 minutes of chaos, Dr. Lixith stepped forward. I will go. Not for the Gorshan alone. For everyone dying of this plague. No one objected. They were too exhausted to fight anymore. Lixith boarded the human vessel alone. She was escorted through clean white corridors to a small conference room where Undersecretary Vasquez waited with a cup of steaming liquid. Tea, Vasquez explained. A human beverage. Would you like some? No, I want the cure. Vasquez nodded. Direct. I appreciate that. Please sit. Lixith remained standing. Thousands are dying. Every hour you delay, more are lost. You have the treatment. Give it to us. We have a treatment, Vasquez acknowledged. It is not complete. Our researchers were still refining it when we withdrew. Then complete it now. We are working on it. But completion requires resources, time, and personnel. And frankly, Doctor, we have other priorities. Priorities? What priority is greater than preventing thousands of deaths? Vasquez set down her cup. Her expression was not cruel, but it was not kind either. It was simply tired. Dr. Lixith, do you know how many diseases humanity has helped treat over the past century? How many plagues we have contained? How many extinction events we have prevented? I do not have those numbers. 347. 347 separate medical crises across 112 species. None of them were human diseases. We did this work without thanks, without recognition, often without payment, because we believed we were part of something larger. Your contributions did matter. They do matter. Then why were we expelled? Vasquez's voice sharpened. Why were we told we were primitive and dangerous? Why were our territories seized and our technology regulated? Why was our very existence treated as a problem to be managed? Lixith had no answer. The Council did not want partners. They wanted servants. Useful tools that would solve their problems without demanding respect. And when we asked for basic dignity, they showed us exactly how much our contributions meant to them. I am sorry, Lixith whispered. I am truly sorry for what was done to your people. Vasquez's expression softened slightly. I believe you are. But your apology does not change the decisions of the Council. It does not undo the harm that was done. Then why are you here? Why speak to me at all? Because despite everything, we are not monsters. We do not want people to die. Vasquez reached into her jacket and removed a data chip. This contains the current treatment protocol. It is incomplete, but functional in approximately 70% of cases. It will save many lives. It will not save everyone. Lixith reached for the chip with trembling claws. What do you want in return? Nothing. The treatment is a gift. But there is something I need you to do. Name it. Return to the Council. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity gave you this treatment freely, without demanding payment. Tell them that we helped because helping is what we do, not because we wanted something from you." She paused. "And then tell them this. We will not return to the council. Ever. That bridge is burned. But we will continue to share knowledge with individual species who approach us with respect. Not through the council. Not through their systems. Directly. One civilization to another. Lixith took the chip. You are dividing us. Breaking the council's unity. No. We are offering an alternative. What species choose to do with that alternative is their own decision." Lixith returned to the waiting fleet with the treatment data. Within days, it was distributed across the affected regions. The plague was contained. Thousands of lives were saved, but the political aftermath was devastating. The Gorshan, grateful for human assistance, began secret diplomatic talks with Earth. The Tellurians, humiliated by their agricultural failures, followed their example. Within months, a shadow network of agreements began to form. Species dealing directly with humanity, bypassing the council entirely. High Speaker Valkyr summoned emergency sessions. He threatened sanctions against any species that dealt with humans independently. He invoked ancient treaties and spoke of galactic unity. No one listened. The council was fracturing, and nothing could stop it. 1 year after the withdrawal, High Speaker Valkyr stood alone in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. The galleries that once held 8,000 species were less than half full. Major civilizations had recalled their representatives to deal with crises at home. The Leadership Council that once held 12 members now held only 7. 5 had withdrawn, citing differences that could not be resolved. The chamber echoed with the ghosts of power that had once filled it. Valkyr reviewed the latest reports, his geometric form flickering with what might have been despair. Trade volume across council space was down 43%. Species participating in council governance had decreased by 31%. Military cooperation agreements had collapsed entirely. Scientific collaboration was minimal and rising steadily. A new network of bilateral treaties centered on a single world, Earth. "They are building a replacement," Councillor Drath snarled, his armored form twitching with rage. "A rival to our authority. This cannot be allowed to continue. And what do you suggest we do?" Councillor Thiessen projected coldly. "Declare war? Against a species we cannot locate, cannot track, and apparently cannot harm? Our fleets are the most powerful in the galaxy. Our fleets are currently occupied with border disputes that human diplomats used to prevent. Our economies are struggling to replace systems that human engineers used to maintain. Our populations are demanding answers that we cannot provide." Thiesen's crystalline swarm contracted with frustration. "We are in no position to threaten anyone." Valkyr raised an appendage for silence. "There may be another option. A last option." Deep in the archives of the Council existed a protocol that had been invoked only twice in 8 million years of galactic history. It was called the Reconciliation Mandate, a formal admission that the Council had made a grave error, combined with an offer of full restoration of rights and privileges to the wrong species. To invoke the mandate, all remaining members of the Leadership Council had to agree unanimously. They would then dispatch their highest-ranking officials to personally deliver the apology. The protocol was designed to be humiliating. That was the point. "You cannot be serious," Drath growled. "We bow before no one." "Then watch your empire crumble," Valkyr responded. "I have studied the projections carefully. Without human contributions, our civilization will not collapse immediately, but it will decline, slowly, steadily. Each generation will be weaker than the one before. In 1,000 years, we will be a shadow of what we were. Other species can fill the gaps they left. They cannot. I have researched this extensively. Humans were not simply useful. They were irreplaceable. Their way of thinking, their approach to problems, their ability to bring opposing ideas together. These abilities do not exist elsewhere. Evolution produced them once, on one world. We had access to that gift, and we threw it away. The chamber fell silent. What would the mandate require? Thiessen asked finally. A formal acknowledgement that our judgment was unjust. Full restoration of human territories. Compensation for damages. A permanent seat on the council leadership. Not one of the current seats, but a new one created specifically for humanity. Equal status. Equal voice. They will refuse, Drath insisted. They have made it clear they want nothing more to do with us. Perhaps, but we must try. The alternative is slow extinction. Is your pride worth that price? The 7 remaining council leaders looked at each other. One by one, they nodded. The council's delegation approached Earth 3 weeks later. It was the largest diplomatic convoy in galactic history. 7 flagship vessels, each carrying a member of the council leadership. 3,000 support ships. Enough military power to devastate a planet. They came not to threaten, but to demonstrate the importance of what they were offering. At the edge of human space. They were met by a single vessel. Ambassador James Whitford's face appeared on every screen. Council members, I see you have finally decided to visit. What a pleasant surprise. Ambassador Whitford, Valkor's voice carried a desperate edge. We come bearing the reconciliation mandate. We acknowledge our errors. We offer full restoration and more. Will you receive us? There was a long pause. You may send one ship. Unarmed, it will be escorted to a meeting location. There we will talk. One ship? We have traveled across the entire galaxy for this meeting. One ship, High Speaker. Accept those terms or leave. Valkor considered refusing, but he had come too far. Very well. The meeting took place on a human station, orbiting a dead moon. The structure should not have existed, according to Council understanding of human technology. Its design incorporated systems the Council had never seen. Its defenses were beyond anything in their databases. The 7 Council leaders were escorted to a simple conference room where President Oilerin waited alone. Please sit, she said. We have much to discuss. Valkor presented the mandate formally. He read the acknowledgement of error. He detailed the compensation. He offered the new leadership seat. Oilerin listened without interruption. When Valkor finished, she took a slow breath. Your offer is generous. More generous than I expected. But I have a question before we proceed. Ask anything. Why did you really expel us? Valkor hesitated. We have acknowledged our error. The specific reasoning no longer matters. It matters to me. I want to understand. Not for negotiation. For my own knowledge. Why did 8,000 species agree that humanity was a threat to be contained? The council leaders exchanged uncertain glances. Finally, Thiessen spoke. Because you frightened us? Frightened? How? We had no significant military. Our economy depended on your systems. By every measure, we were a minor power. Exactly. You were minor, and yet you kept solving problems we could not solve. You kept appearing in places you should not have been able to reach. You kept growing and changing at a rate that made no sense. We are ancient civilizations. We change slowly. You changed so fast we could not follow. And that frightened you? It terrified us. We looked at humanity and saw something we did not understand. A species with no apparent limits. Every time we thought we knew what you could do, you exceeded it. So we tried to contain you, to slow you down, to make you manageable. And now? Now we see what containment cost us. We see that your growth was never a threat. It was a gift. You were pulling us forward, and we were too afraid to follow. The room fell silent. Oilerin stood and walked to a window that showed the stars. I cannot accept your offer. Cannot or will not? Both. We have spent the past year building something new. Not a rival to the Council. Something different. A network of equals. Species treating each other with respect, working together without hierarchy. It is smaller than the Council, but it is healthy. It is growing. We could join that network. You cannot. Not because we would exclude you, but because you cannot change what you are. The Council was built on hierarchy and dominance. Those assumptions are woven into everything you do. You cannot simply decide to be equals. Then what do you want us to do? Oilerin turned to face them. Dissolve the Council. Completely. Let each species stand on its own. Then, if individual civilizations wish to build new relationships, with us or with each other, let them do so freely. No seats of power. No hierarchy. Just beings choosing to cooperate. That would mean the end of everything we have built over millions of years. No, it would be the beginning of something. Better, the Council leaders returned to their fleet in shocked silence. Dissolution. The end of galactic governance as it had existed since before most. Species achieved spaceflight, but as they traveled home, each of them began noticing something. The human network they had dismissed was thriving. Dozens of species had joined. Trade was flowing. Problems were being solved. Not through commands or threats. Through cooperation. Valkyr studied the data and felt something unfamiliar stirring in his ancient consciousness. Hope. Perhaps, he said quietly to himself, perhaps she is right. 10 years had passed since humanity withdrew from the Galactic Council, the Grand Chamber that once held the most powerful governing body in galactic history had been transformed beyond recognition. The platforms where the Council leadership once sat in judgment had been removed. In their place stood a circular table with no head position, no hierarchy, just a ring of equals. The tiered galleries where species once sat arranged by power and influence had become an open space where beings of all kinds moved freely among each other. The chamber had a new name now. It was called the Forum of Voices. Ambassador James Whitford walked through the crowd slowly. His hair had gone completely white in the decade since he delivered humanity's withdrawal. Lines of age and responsibility marked his face. Every few steps, someone stopped him. Beings of 100 different forms wanted to thank him, to speak with him, to touch the hand of the human who had changed everything. He accepted each greeting with grace, but his eyes kept searching the room. Finally, he found what he was looking for. Valkyr sat alone at a small table near the great viewport, watching the stars. He was no longer High Speaker. That title no longer existed. He was simply Valkyr now, one voice among many. Whitford sat across from him. You came, Valkyr said. His voice carried none of its old authority. It sounded almost peaceful. You invited me. I was not certain you would accept. After everything that happened between our peoples, after everything, we are still here. Both of us. That seems worth acknowledging. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. I have been thinking, Valkyr said finally, about what you told us in the Grand Chamber. When you withdrew, you said that in 6 months, we would begin to understand what we had done. Remember, you were wrong. Whitford raised an eyebrow. It took us much longer than 6 months, years. It took us losing almost everything we had built over millions of years. And even then, many of us refused to understand. But you understood eventually. Eventually. Though I still do not fully comprehend how you did it. How you knew exactly what would happen. How you prepared so perfectly for our response. Whitford smiled slightly. We did not know. Not exactly. We made educated guesses based on a century of observation. We hoped we were right. We feared we were wrong. You seemed so confident. Confidence is a performance. Inside, we were terrified. We walked away from everything we knew, betting our entire civilization on a guess about how you would react. Many things could have gone wrong, but nothing did. Many things went wrong. People died during the transition, not from our actions directly, but from the chaos that followed. Economies collapsed. Wars started. We prevented what we could, but we could not prevent everything. Valkyr processed this. You carry guilt. We carry responsibility. There is a difference, but sometimes the weight feels the same. President Eulerin still held office, now serving he. Our fourth term. She addressed a gathering of the Coalition of Free Species in the transformed chamber. The Coalition was not a government in the traditional sense. There was no central authority, no binding laws, no hierarchy of power. It was simply a network of civilizations that had agreed to certain principles. Mutual respect, open exchange, collaborative problem-solving. Humanity was part of this network, but not its leader. That was by design. 12 years ago, Eulerin said, we left the Galactic Council because we believed there had to be a better way. Today, I can say with confidence that there is a better way. Not our way specifically. Better ways, plural. Each species finding its own path, learning from each other, growing together without anyone claiming dominance. She paused to let her words settle. But I want to be clear about something. We did not destroy the old order. The old order destroyed itself. We simply removed ourselves and let natural consequences unfold. Every failure that happened after our departure was a failure that had always been waiting to happen. We just stopped preventing it. A Gorshan representative raised a claw. Ambassador Whitford suggested something similar when we first met. He said humanity's real role in the Council was not contributing, but maintaining. That you held things together through constant invisible effort. That is partly true, but it is also incomplete. We did not just maintain. We enabled. We made it possible for the Council to function despite its fundamental problems. And by doing that, we prevented those problems from ever being fixed. Our departure was not punishment. It was liberation. For everyone, including ourselves. On Earth, the changes had been just as dramatic. With Council restrictions removed, human technology had advanced rapidly. Faster-than-light travel had been refined to new levels of efficiency. Communication systems now spanned thousands of light-years instantaneously. Medical science had extended healthy human lifespan significantly. But the most important changes were not technological. In the city of New Geneva, a school taught children from 37 different species. Human children learned alongside young Gorshans, juvenile Rillians, and infant Tellurians. They studied together, played together, grew up together. Dr. Lixith, now a leading figure in interspecies education, watched a mixed group of students working on a project. She had never returned to Gorshan territory after receiving the plague treatment. She had found a new home among humans instead. What are they building? Victor Hahn asked. He was old now, retired from active research, but he still visited the school regularly. A better translation system. The current ones work well, but the children think they can improve them. They are approaching the problem from multiple perspectives at once, combining concepts from different species. That sounds familiar. It should. It is the human approach. Except now it is not just human. It is becoming universal. Han watched the children work. So different from each other in form and biology, yet so comfortable together. We worried, you know, when we withdrew. We feared isolation would make us smaller and narrower. And instead, we became more ourselves than ever. We stopped trying to fit into someone else's system and started building our own. And somehow, that made us more open, not less. More connected, not isolated. The paradox of withdrawal. The paradox of authenticity. When you stop performing for others, you discover who you actually are. And it turns out, we are quite good at bringing different beings together. In the Forum of Voices, the annual gathering continued. Music filled the chamber. Compositions that blended human melodies with Gorshon harmonics, Willian rhythms, and Tellurian bass tones. Art displays showed collaborative works created by teams from dozens of species. Scientists presented discoveries made through partnerships that would have been impossible under the old system. Ambassador Whitford delivered the closing address 12 years ago. Humanity withdrew from the Galactic Council. We did it in silence, without explanation, without demands. We simply left and let the consequences unfold. Many asked us why. Why did we not fight? Why did we not negotiate? Why did we not try to change the system from within? The answer is simple. Because some systems cannot be changed from within. Some structures are so fundamentally broken that the only solution is to step away and let them collapse under their own weight. We did not know what would emerge from that collapse. We hoped it would be something better. We feared it might be something worse. But we knew with absolute certainty that what existed could not continue. He paused, looking out at the assembled beings. Today, I see the result of that risk. Not a perfect society. We are far from perfect. But a living one. A growing one. A society that can face its problems honestly, that can change when change is needed, that treats every voice as worthy of being heard. The old galaxy is gone. The new one is still being born. And for the first time in 8 million years, the future is truly unknown. He smiled. I cannot wait to see what we become. Far from the Forum, on the edge of explored space, a human research vessel detected something that made its crew fall silent. Signal, artificial, coming from beyond the galactic rim. Encoded in patterns that matched nothing in any database. Someone else was out there. Someone knew. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now chief of deep space exploration, studied the readings and made a decision. Prepare a response, she ordered. Carefully, respectfully, as equals. Whatever waited in the darkness between galaxies. It would not be met by an empire seeking dominance. It would be met by a coalition seeking connection. The galaxy would never be silent again.